She walked into the most expensive hotels in New York and introduced herself as Anna Delvey, a German heiress with a multi-million-dollar trust. She booked suites, threw lavish brunches, and moved through the city like she owned it. People opened their doors. Investors and socialites opened their wallets. But the truth was different. Behind the designer coat and the lavish invitations was a careful, calculated performance. A life built on borrowed luxury and borrowed credibility. Tonight we'll trace how a young woman remade herself into a myth, how that myth beguiled New York's elite, and how it finally unraveled. This is the story of illusion, privilege, and one tiny lie that became a whole other life. She was born in Russia and raised in Germany. The girl who would later call herself Anna Delvey grew up far from the penthouses and private jets she later pretended to know. But she was ambitious, not in the clumsy way of youth, but in a precise theatrical manner. Her reinvention began with a name, Anna Sorokin. She arrived in New York and cultivated an image, fashionable, wealthy, well-connected, the sort of person people want to meet and be seen with. She frequented high-end restaurants mingled in exclusive clubs, fashionable, wealthy, well-connected, the sort of person people want to meet and be seen with. She frequented high-end restaurants mingled in exclusive clubs and made friends who had access to the city's most important doors. The persona worked because it was plausible. Wealth looks a certain way: a confident posture, name-dropping, a willingness to pay extravagantly, or at least to appear willing. Anna understood the performance and she sold it, piece by piece. Yet beneath the sparkle were cracks, unpaid bills, canceled wire transfers, and excuses that grew thinner with each claim. The first seeds of doubt would take root quietly in the margins of invoices and the small print of reservations, outfits, and charm. She needed authority. She cultivated it in 3 ways. First, she curated associations. She name-dropped art collectors, wealthy friends, and people in finance. She spoke as if introductions were trivial, and money was simply a matter of moving ink on a page. That casual confidence made others fill in the gaps. When someone believed she had access to capital, other people got curious, and some became complicit. Second, she used receipts of credibility. Fake references, a convincing LinkedIn presence, invented email trails, and carefully staged photos. All the little things that, together, created a strong surface. In New York, where reputation is a currency, a convincing surface can be enough to open doors. Third, she leveraged generosity and scarcity. She hosted brunches and dinners, invited the right people, and made everyone feel like an insider. Being included felt like an honor. That feeling is powerful. People who felt privileged to be part of something were less likely to question its host. The story that tied everything together was not just wealth, it was a plan. Anna pitched an exclusive project, an arts club, a cultural haven for the city's elite. The project sounded visionary, and for many, it was the promise of being early on something big. Promises of access to a future prestige turned friends into backers and acquaintances into investors. When people asked for proof of funds, she presented draft wire confirmations, or said the money was tied up in trust and paperwork. The classic story of instant billionaires whose wealth is complicated. This mixture of charm, authority, and a grand idea let her borrow the appearance of power, and with it the practical trappings. Hotel suites, private dinners, and introductions to influential figures relied on small, believable lies, the kind of people overlook because they don't seem worth policing. She would promise to cover a dinner and then stall payment with a story about a delayed wire. She would secure a hotel reservation, use the suite for a few nights, and then dispute charges as if she had been wronged. She would convince an associate to lend money for a short period, and then arrange a sequence of excuses to delay repayment. The psychology is simple. People want to believe and they hate losing face. If a friend introduced you to someone claiming to be wealthy, your instinct is to trust, especially when being skeptical could mean social embarrassment. Anna used that instinct as a shield. She also manipulated institutions. She opened accounts at banks, attempted wire transfers, and created plausible-looking paperwork. While none of these stood up to deep scrutiny, at a glance they were convincing enough. In a world of endless transactions and bureaucracy, a single convincing email or bank draft can buy days. And days became weeks, weeks became months. Another tactic was escalation. She never asked for huge sums at once. She started with small favors. A dinner paid, a car service covered, and gradually increased what she borrowed. People who had already been helped found it harder to say no. By the time the amounts became serious, the relationships and obligations made it painful to pull away. There were also moments of genuine charisma that made the performance feel real. When she spoke about art or ambition, she sounded like someone who belonged in that world. That charisma, and combined with careful planning, turned doubt into rationalization. Friends said things like, "She's untouchable and she's building something important." And so the machine ran. Invitations, deposits, promises, delayed wires, and new invitations. For a long time, it was self-sustaining, and until the math could no longer be papered over. The first real cracks were practical. Hotels require payment, banks close accounts, and lenders ask for proof. When one high-end hotel demanded verification, or when a concierge followed up on repeated unpaid charges, the story could no longer be shrugged away. A critical moment came when friends and associates began to compare notes. Stories that had sounded isolated suddenly formed a pattern. Identical delays, similar excuses, repeated promises. A journalist smelled a story. An unpaid service made its way onto a ledger. The first public reports appeared. Once the media took interest, the performance faltered. Panic shortened the time she had to manage impressions. Hotel staff, bankers, and ostracized acquaintances began to speak to one another and to the press. The very visibility that had helped her, high-profile parties and public appearances, now accelerated her fall. She was arrested, tried, and the case became a public spectacle. Court filings exposed a tangle of unpaid bills, canceled transfers, and loans that had not been repaid. Prosecutors framed the story as more than bad manners. They alleged systematic fraud, a scheme to live a lifestyle under false pretenses. In court, the drama that had been carefully rehearsed in hotel lobbies and penthouse parties was dissected in sworn testimony. Victims described betrayal, friends described bewilderment. Jurors saw the paper trail, emails, invoices, and a pattern of behavior that together told a single story. Conviction followed. For many, the sentence was less about the money than about the breach of a social contract: trust. In a city that trades on reputation, the price of betrayal can be steep. The myth of Anna Delvey had finally been punctured. After the conviction, the story did not simply vanish. It echoed through culture. Books, articles, and a television series would reimagine the tale, turning a convicted con artist into a character in a modern morality play. That reimagining raises difficult questions. Who profits from the story? Who gets represented and how? More importantly, the story reveals something about how we value signal over substance. We equate appearance with authenticity. A designer bag, a confident accent, a curated Instagram feed. These can all be mistaken for proof of worth. Anna's success at deception was not just a failure of law, it was a failure of social imagination. People wanted to believe. There are lessons for institutions and individuals. Hotels and banks tightened procedures. Journalists became more skeptical of the seamless success story, and friends learned to verify beyond the invitation. For viewers, there is a caution. Charisma can be a mask. Trust in high-stakes environments needs evidence. And yet the story is complicated. Some saw in Anna a critique of a society that rewards spectacle and punishes those who are not polished. Others saw the simple arithmetic of crime: deception, gain, exposure, consequence. Both interpretations are part of the conversation. In the final analysis, the Anna Delvey saga is a mirror. It reflects a world where image is powerful, where introductions can become currency, and where truth is sometimes optional until it is not. The woman who once ate in the city's finest dining rooms on credit ended up in courtrooms and headlines. If there is one final thought, it is this: image can open doors, but it cannot pay the bills forever.